let us see what these minutes show. These are minutes from an official interview about transfer to the VRS. And we see here that Colonel Erak himself says in these minutes that he refused to sign a letter of appointment whereby he would accept this new assignment, whereby Mr. Erak...
Samo da nađem sad ja. Vidite pod A.
If you look at paragraph A and then the last sentence, the last 3 lines, I have refused to be transferred and that is why I did not sign the report, etc. Can you see that?
Thank you.
Dakle, pukovnik.
In other words, Colonel Erak states here that he refused to accept this document and that he was entitled to it. We've seen the laws, and both laws show that. Any order on transfers is subject to appeals.
And
he refused to sign this document.
And what were the consequences?
On je ostao tu.
He remained where he was, but he did not appeal this decision, as he was entitled to.
Drugi dokaz tužilaštva,
The second exhibit that the prosecution produced, P1858, also dealing with the Erak case, and we can see in this document the following. We see that Mr. Dragutin Erak did not wait to get the approval of the main staff of the VRS in order to return to the VJ, but rather he left the VRS of his own volition. And this was mentioned and something that witness Škrbić testified to on transcript page 11698. Now, if we look at these 2 exhibits of the prosecution together, they do not show coercion. Quite the contrary, they prove voluntariness. They show that there was no authority and no coercion whatsoever that the prosecution was trying to show General Perišić engaged in. Now, in the final brief, in paragraph 197, for instance, the prosecution discussing certain officers of the Yugoslav army when discussing the case of Kosovo, tries to show that there was a connection between them and the Yugoslav army. And as Mr. Harman said, he said that they were going back and forth between the 2 armies like a ping-pong ball. And they referred to Exhibit 1999. Now, our claim is that this did not show anything that would be incriminating for General Perišić. They show something in us, so we will show that in a moment. The prosecution stressed a portion of this paragraph, the fact that some officers who were on duty in Kosovo in 1999, that they were on duty during General Perišić's tenure, but in fact, it does not show in any way that that was the case. And for us, this is a very important subject that we will come back to when we speak about Kosovo.
A few words about promotions. The prosecution relied on such documents of promotion and verification of rank to prove both types of liability. Although 2 days ago you could hear that the defense, when analyzed the promotion and verification issues, only did so concerning the mode of liability in paragraph 426 and 2430 in final brief, and we would like to invite you to make reference to them. This is where we specifically deal with the thesis proposed about the promotions, verifications, and their influence on the stability of the personnel cadre of the VRS and their morale. In our view, the prosecution asserted that this was precisely their thesis on how the officers were provided. We assert that the conclusion that the prosecution relied on in order to prove the verification of ranks and its effect on the stability of the army, and that it also is an indicator of effective control, is based on an isolated display of certain documents and exhibits. When assessing this issue, you will have to decide what it was that the prosecution managed to prove as a proper indicator of verification concerning the ranks. Whether such rank verifications influenced their stay in the VRS, and whether those rank verifications were a means to exercise authority and effective control by General Perišić over the people who had their ranks verified. The defense, in its final brief, in paragraph 379 to 441, analyzed in detail all evidence about rank verifications and its links to the charges against Mr. Perišić. In that regard, we won't repeat ourselves. However, I would like to refer to something we referred to in our final brief, as was Mr. Harman's thesis in his closing argument, and that is the extraordinary promotion of Ratko Mladić. These are P1902, a document issued by President Lilić of the 16th of June 1994, and P1903, the extraordinary promotion to the same rank in the FRY, to the same rank in the VRS by virtue of Karadzic's decree. The two promotions did not take place at the same time. He was exceptionally promoted in the VRS before he had been promoted in the FRY. Mr. Harman knows well that he holds no evidence of any Perišić's participation in the exceptional promotion of Mr. Mladić in the VJ. He knows that because they read all of the minutes of the SDC in detail, as did we. What is important for you when deciding on the facts, have to bear in mind all the existing evidence which can be correlated to this specific promotion, because the documents alone say nothing which would enable you to conclude anything about the participation of General Perišić in the exceptional promotion of General Mladić. However, there is an interesting point to note that I would particularly wish to draw your attention to. At all SDC sessions, whether exceptional or regular promotions are concerned, there were proposals, and as you could see from the minutes, the discussions took place about, perhaps I could call them candidates for promotions. This was also the case during the meetings and sessions preceding General Mladić's promotion in the VJ, signed by Mr. Lilić. there were two particular sessions. One is the 15th, which deals with promotions, and the other is the 21st. It is a very interesting session of the SDC. The exhibit in question is P776. We need not display them on the screen because they're quite voluminous. The 21st session was held on the 7th of June 1994, 7 days before President Lilić promoted him exceptionally. We have the minutes where we see that regular and exceptional promotions were discussed, but there was not a single mention of General Mladić. Mr. Harman knows that well. It is obvious, therefore, that his promotion, General Mladić's promotion in the VJ, was not discussed at the SDC. There were no comments, and Mr. Perišić did not propose that promotion. Perhaps I can digress a little. When Mr. Harman is trying to link Mr. Perišić with Mr. Lilić's promotion, he invoked the preamble of the promotion referring to Article 46 of the law on the army.
The interpretation says Mr. Lilić's promotion. Is it Mladić or Lilić?
Lilićev ukaz o
Mr. Lilić's promotion of Mladić. Decree on the promotion.
Dakle, jedinu vezu
The only link that the prosecution wishes to establish concerning Mladić's exceptional promotion with Mr. Perišić is the reference to the preamble of the exceptional promotion decree, whereby Article 46 of the army of the law of the army is mentioned. In the article, we see that the president of the FRY can exceptionally promote following a proposal of the Chief of General Staff. That is the wording of the article. However, we have cases of exceptional promotions of generals, not only without General Perišić's proposal, but also against his opinion for some people's promotions in the VJ. Perhaps you should look at the very interesting discussion of the 30th session of the SDC, where President Milošević insisted, I dare say, that General Boro-Ivanović be exceptionally promoted. 2 sessions earlier, Mr. Perišić initiated disciplinary proceedings against the same person. When President Milošević proposed that as a member of the SDC, General Perišić decidedly objected. In spite of that, General Ivanović was exceptionally promoted at the session. Therefore, there is no proof beyond a reasonable doubt that would make you conclude that General Perišić was involved in the exceptional promotion of General Mladić. The prosecution know that well. When considering the issue of promotions, we need to bear in mind the words of witness Škrbić at transcript page 11273, interpreter's correction 11723. He said that the exceptional promotion in question was directly correlated with the announced public exceptional promotion of Mladić in the RS some 10 days prior. Although he had no direct knowledge, and I don't want to draw any conclusion based on speculation, He stated that there was a link in his testimony when addressing the issue. Let us look at the other side of the coin, which is important for your conclusion on the importance of verifications, and especially the verification of this promotion. You need to ask yourselves what effect that promotion had on Mladić's authority. And I will also use the term specifically referred in 7.3 as the means of effective control over him. He indicated that through his personal action, which followed not a month later following his exceptional promotion. He was one of the pioneers of the idea to reject the contact group plan in July 1994. He openly opposed the leadership of the FRY and the SDC, which had promoted him exceptionally in June. Despite the exceptional promotion, Mladić displayed absolutely no respect, let alone acknowledgement of the authority of the FRY leadership. And those were the people who had promoted him exceptionally. The prosecution, in a number of places in their final brief and closing arguments, referred to such evidence concerning the promotions of the 40th Personnel Center and the SVK. We know that the SVK or its members were not in any way linked with the crimes in Srebrenica, leaving aside the issue of provision of personnel officers cadre. I understand that they may wish to use that evidence to show how promotions functioned in the other army, the RS, by indicating the practice in the SVK. But when you are faced with such indirect evidence, speaking of one army trying to prove something that occurred in the other army and the charges relating to that particular army, then you need to corroborate that by direct evidence through witnesses from the RS and the VRS. I invite you to carefully analyze the witnesses who testified about the importance of rank verification in the VRS, because its members were accused of the crimes in Sarajevo and Srebrenica rather than members of the SVK. First and foremost, I have in mind Škrbić and Mančić because they were the witnesses involved, and they were basically questioned very little on those facts by the OTP in their cross-examination. In paragraphs 236 and 237 of their final brief, the prosecution referred to the secrecy of the verification process, which runs counter to their thesis of motivation and morale as an important element in the procurement of the officers' cadre of the VRS and their propensity to crimes. How, I have to ask myself, was their morale improved, and how was the further development of the officers' cadre assisted and influenced if this was not known publicly, if those officers did not even receive decrees on promotion in the VJ? Many witnesses, as we mentioned in our final brief, confirmed that remained in their positions in the VRS for over a year and longer before their ranks were verified in the VJ. None of them left the VRS, and we didn't hear any testimony to that effect, because their ranks had not been verified. The prosecution, simply put, did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that rank verifications in any way contributed to the stability of the VRS. Witness Malčić testified in detail of the importance the promotion in the VJ had on his stay and promotions in the VRS. He immediately placed that rank insignia on his uniform, and that was the primary confirmation of the quality of his work, as he said himself on transcript page 11294 and 5. It didn't even occur to him to leave the VRS because his rank was not verified. We should also look at another reference Mr. Harman made, which is from the Galić case, and Exhibit P1759. It is General Milovanovic's letter in 1996 asking for General Galic's verification of rank, and General Galić was retired in 1994. I truly cannot establish a link between that exhibit and the fact that that exhibit was supposed to show the importance of General Galic's rank verification at the time when he was in a position of authority, which enabled him to assist in the commission of crimes, as the prosecution would have it. I will move on to a completely different topic now. The prosecution, in certain parts of their final brief, finally, and I would use that word, described or identified the persons they believe to be direct perpetrators of crimes. In the indictment, it was put in more broader terms, but now we had a specific reference as regards the VRS and the SVK. I will deal exclusively with Sarajevo and Srebrenica in this part. Some of the people they detail in their final brief are also referred to in the indictment. Some of them who appear in the final brief had not been mentioned in the indictment, although they can always be included in the group descriptions of their positions. In any case, here for the first time we have all of them precisely stipulated in the final brief. When one analyzes the evidence of their status, but not as shown by the prosecution, because it is single-sided and isolated. But when you look at the totality of evidence, I believe there will be no questions left in your mind. They did not enjoy the status ascribed to them by the prosecution. The positions of authority they held is something that enabled them to commit the crimes that Mr. Perišić is charged with, as the OTP assert. Those positions and those ranks were received by them from the VRS and the SVK much earlier than the verifications in the VJ themselves. The rank verifications as such did not influence their stay in those positions, as I said a moment ago.
Let us now look at some of the most significant examples of persons whom the prosecutor describes as crime perpetrators, and let us see what their status is in the army, and let us see thereby what their link to General Perišić would be. Ratko Mladić. As for his position of authority that enabled him to commit the crimes concerned, the prosecutor claims that that was the case, and he was appointed to this position by Karadzić's order P2 P2043 in May 1992. We don't have to look at that exhibit, but let us look at P2024. He held that position until the 8th of November 1996. By the decree of Biljana Plavšić, President of Republika Srpska, what does this document say? He is relieved of the duty he held until now, Ratko Mladić, son of Neđo, and he is being placed at the disposal of the General Staff or main staff of the Army of Republika Srpska. General Mladić was never placed at the disposal of the Army of Yugoslavia, and he was not appointed after he was relieved of this duty to any position in the Army of Yugoslavia. In contrast to what the prosecution says on the basis of their evidence, P2025, P2036, and P2037, after this duty, he served in military postcode 7034 Han Piesak. That's a military postcode for the Army of Republika Srpska that has nothing whatsoever to do with the Army of Yugoslavia. This is prosecution exhibits. Finally, according to P2033, his active military service was terminated by a decree of the President of the Republika Srpska. Let us look at P2033. We have seen it often during the trial itself. It is from 2002, and this document says that his service in the Army of Republika Srpska is terminated. All of this is evidence produced by the prosecution, and when analyzing the status of General Mladić, the prosecution totally ignored these documents. Your Honors, you should not do that. As for General Mladić, there is not a shred of evidence to the effect that at any point in time he was appointed to any position in the 30th Personnel Center.
Njegov akt o postavljanju na dužnost.
The document on his appointment, since he was a general, could only have been passed by Lilić, the President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. We have not seen evidence to that effect. Let us look at Annex G of the prosecution final brief in relation to the column where transfers are being analyzed with regard to General Mladić, too. That is where I wanted to see whether there was any proof. On the basis of what was the prosecution claiming that he was appointed to the 30th Personnel Center? Look at the references made by the prosecution in their final brief. There is no proof of this whatsoever. There is no document related to his appointment to the 30th Personnel Center. There is no document saying that General Ratko Mladić was appointed to the 30th Personnel Center. Your Honors, if you agree, this would be the right time to take the break.
Certainly is. We will take a break and come back at 12:30. Court adjourned.
All rise. We